Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name's Donald. This is my recently acquired Nissan Frontier Pro 4X. I got the Frontier to replace my modified Subaru Forester that I drove through the backcountry for a couple of years. It was recently totaled in an accident. If you're thinking about adding some ram mount gear to your Frontier or really any other vehicle, I'm going to show you how I've installed it in my Frontier and talk a little bit about the system in general and what I think of it. This is not sponsored in any way. I purchased the ram mount gear myself. I have no affiliation. It makes no difference to me if you buy this stuff by something else. I've had a lot of people ask me questions about it, and so I'm just finally getting around to talking about what I've done. The whole system works around these ball mounts and some kind of arm and some kind of holder. And you can mix and match these in a number of ways. The key thing to remember when you're looking at components, they have 3 different sizes of these balls. So make sure the components that you're looking at are all for the same size. I think they have A, B, and C. I'm using the B size. But what I can't stress enough is that you really need to go to the ram mount website and look through all of the possible components. There are so many possibilities, and it was only through checking out all of the options that I eventually configured what worked perfectly for me. I would not try to buy this stuff on Amazon. On Amazon you can find little kits that have got, a certain type of dash mount and a connector and a holder or whatever, and it may work, but it may be that there's a better solution on Ram Mount's website, and you can go and you can mix and match, pick the exact components that are going to work best for your setup. So this is the composite end loading track. This is what I found that happened to fit perfectly on the space I had available on the Forester. As it happens, it works perfectly well on the tray of the Frontier as well. There are a few different kinds of tracks, but this 8-inch end-loading track was a perfect fit for my Forester. It happened to align perfectly with the upper tray of the 2005 to the 2020 Frontier as well, although it won't sit down flush, either bridging this gap or sort of rocking on the convex front surface. It would certainly be better to have a plastic trim tool to take these apart, but I don't have one. I'm just going to very carefully use a screwdriver. I can. I watched somebody do this on YouTube. It looked pretty simple. Yeah, very simple. Now I'm going to go ahead and use this track that I already had because it does happen to be such a perfect fit for that upper dash tray of the Frontier. But if you have a Frontier, also do check out the other mounting options that Ram Mount has available. There's a wide range of possibility. There's other things that you can attach to other parts of your dash. There is a no drill mount that bolts down someplace on the floor and then uses a vertical riser. There's a number of options. Since I have this and I know that it works with the other components that I have in terms of the layout, and since it fits this so well, I'm going to go ahead and use this. I'm not particularly skilled, so don't take any of this as a how-to. There are certainly better ways to do this. I'm just showing you what I did. When I have to mount something with multiple screw holes, I prefer to line up the item and use it as a guide, and then attach the item right away with one screw. That way, I know all my subsequent holes will be positioned correctly. I usually run into trouble if I try to mark all the holes with a pen first and then drill them all. I'm using some machine screws with washers and locking nuts to secure the middle portion of the track where it bridges the gap in the tray. At the ends, I simply used tapered sheet metal screws. Alright, there we go. That's all attached, and I like how that lines up. If you do try the same approach as me with the same type of track and you bridge that little space right there, I think you just want to be careful not to over tighten these bolts because this plastic is all a little bit flexible. I think it'll start to squeeze together. I think that's very, very solid. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. Let's put it back in the truck. Okay, I can't necessarily recommend putting it on the way that I did. It did sort of distort this top plate just enough that it didn't want to snap back down into the clips. It didn't feel quite secure enough to me. I ended up re-securing this top tray to the underlying plastic with some additional screws. Now the weight of the iPad will no longer be dependent just on those plastic clips. Perhaps I should have mounted this rail along the front here, and maybe that would have distorted this less, but ultimately I think it was a good idea to secure this tray with additional screws anyway, because now that I think of it, the weight of the iPad, the GPS on there on a bouncy rough road, and I just put a couple little black screws in there. It looks fine. You can't even really see them back behind the rail anyway.
All of the various track options use these T-bolt balls which slide into the track and tighten down on themselves. Very simple to install, very easy to adjust if needed.
One thing I really like about the track mount, as opposed to some of the various ball mounts that just screw directly on or use adhesive, is that it gave me the ability to position and reposition these balls depending on how I ended up configuring my iPad and my GPS. These little basic arms give you quite a bit of flexibility in terms of how you can position them, but it's not 100%. As you can see, there's quite a lot of positioning flexibility, but there are some positions that it won't quite get to. Like if I wanted to have it rotated over more that way, but this thing turned towards me, I can't. And if I can't. That's why I also got this sort of multi-segmented one. It gives a much broader range of motion and a little more distance away from everything. To this, I found much more flexible for mounting my iPad mount. And this is the X mount for a phone, but it works well for my old Garmin GPS, which I still like to use. I still find it useful. And this is the X mount for a small tablet. Alright, I like how this is looking. I can see and access my iPad, I can see the GPS, and I've got the GoPro mount up here, which I can face forward or towards me if I need to. By the way, I don't run the GoPro like this when I'm driving down the road. I just put that on occasionally when I'm out on a dirt road with nobody around. One of the things I really do like about this system is how adjustable it is. And if ultimately I decide maybe I want to put the GPS over on this side and mount the tablet a little further away, I can do that. I can adjust this stuff as much as I need to. And without a doubt, the RAM mount stuff is not cheap. I had experimented with a number of different types of mounts for the GPS and the iPad, inexpensive things off of Amazon, and ultimately they all disappointed. Finally, I just broke down, spent the money, and I have not regretted it. I don't remember exactly. All of this stuff ended up costing a little over $200, which that was a bit of a tough pill to swallow, but ultimately it has worked out so well. I ran it in the Forester from about July up until it was wrecked in January. That included a lot of miles of rough roads, including my big week-long overland trip through Southeast Oregon with Jason of Primal Outdoors. Ultimately, even as someone who tries to operate on a budget, I have been happy with the money that I spent on this. If I am going to spend a lot of money, I want to really appreciate it, and it's true this stuff simply works really well. It's solid, and it's reliable, and I just love how flexible it is. Again, I would highly recommend going to the RAM mount site and take your time, look through all of the components, because you may find some little piece that you never would have even thought existed and you realize, oh, that's perfect for my application.
I hope you found this useful in some way. If you have any questions about my RAM mount setup or my experience with the system, let me know in the comments below. If you've used a different system you've been happy with, comment below as well. If you're new to the channel, check out my other videos for more reviews and DIY related to camping and backcountry exploration, as well as overland adventures across the West. I will have many more videos about the Frontier coming as I continue developing the build for my uses. Thanks for watching.